Sahana vavatu Sahanau bhunaktu Sahaviryam karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shri Bhagavanuvacha Anashritah karma phalam karyam karma karoti yaha sasannyasi cha yogi cha na niragnir na chakriyah yam sannyāsamiti prahuhu yogam tam vidhi pandava nahya sannyasta sankalpaha yogi bhavati kaschana arurukshor yogam karma karanamuchyate yogarudhasya tasyaiva shamah karanamuchyate yada hinendriyartheshu na karmasvanusajjate sarva sankalpa sannyasi yogarudhastadochyate uddharedatmanatmanam नात्मानमवसाधयेत् आत्मैव ह्यात्मनो बन्धुः आत्मैव रिपुरात्मनः बन्धुरात्मात्मनस्तस्य येनात्वैवात्मना जितः अनात्मनस्तु शत्रुत्वे वर्तेतात्मैव शत्रुवत् जितात्मनः प्रशान्तस्य परमात्मा समाहितः शीतोष्णसुखदुःखेषु तथा मानापमानयोः ज्ञानविज्ञानतृप्तात्मा कूटस्थो विजितेन्द्रियः युक्त इत्युच्यते योगी समलोष्ठाश्मकाञ्चनः सुहृन्मित्रायुदासीनः माध्यस्थद्वेष्य बन्धुषु साधुष्वपि च पापेषु समबुद्धिर्विशिष्यते योगी युञ्जीत सततम् आत्मानं रहसि स्थितः एकाकीयत चित्तात्मा निराशीरपरिग्रहः Hari Om, Namaskaram to everyone. The last we did was the 9th verse, where he said, he who has equal regard for the different types of people, whether it be the good-hearted, whether it be the evil-minded, whether a friend or a foe, one who is indifferent to you, one is neutral to you, whether it be a relative, whether a person who is in the righteous path or an unrighteous path, you have equal regard for all of them. You don't have a preferential relationship. A relationship lasts. A relationship is important to understand whether it is established from a selfish perspective or an unselfish perspective. When your relationship is based on a selfishness, then you will have a preferential relationship with people. Now, what I mean by that is, when the world, here with reference to the people, when the people behave or cater to your feelings and emotions, you seem to have a particular liking or a preferential relationship. But the moment the world or the people out there don't fit into your selfish demands, when they don't conduct themselves the way you want them to be, you are forced to establish a preferential relationship. But if you want to have a relationship devoid of any preferences, a non-preferential relationship, you have to be as unselfish as possible. To the extent you have no personal expectations, to that extent you will have an equal vision to the variety of people out there. Now, you may hold them in equal regard, but it is important for us to understand how in each one is helplessly functioning according to their own dharma, according to their own nature, according to their own vasanas. And when we fail to understand that an individual has a very unique nature, a distinct nature, when we fail to understand that, then we start imposing our own expectations, and then we find a reason to complain, and then we have a wrong relationship because you say they don't fit into my mental make. See, we as humans have no problem when we deal with the animal kingdom. When we look at the animal kingdom, we find that there is distinct nature, the entire animal kingdom. Every animal has distinct nature, unique to itself. And when you understand that animal to be what it is, you will have no problem relating with it. But when it comes to humans, we don't seem to apply that principle that the gunas or vasanas are functioning and they are also helplessly expressing their gunas or vasanas. So if only we are able to apply that principle, which we are able to apply with reference to animals, with reference to humans, we will have no difficulty in understanding their unique nature. You will be able to manage your own expectations, in fact, rationalize. You will not be surprised. This is what they are. This is what he is. This is what she is. So you'll have a perfect assessment. So there's a problem when, in fact, there's a problem we get into is because we become judgmental with reference to people. There's a difference between assessing people and being judgmental. We're very quick to pass judgments. Judgments are opinionated. It's your perspective. You could be right, you could be wrong. But assessment is to take stock of what that person presents himself at that particular time. What I was yesterday is not what I am today. What I was 6 months ago is not the same person I am today. So how can you continue to relate with me of what assessment you had made 6 months ago, or 2 weeks ago, or yesterday? Even though I'm the same person, but there could be slight changes in my mental makeup. So you'll have to make assessment, you have to make constant assessment, and you have to align your expectations with reference to what the world is presenting itself. As long as you're able to perfect this art of aligning your expectations with what each person brings as his personality to the equation, you will have no complaints. You will be able to accept whatever is their nature, because they are helplessly expressing their own vasanas, they're helplessly expressing their own gunas. Now you got to put this principle to the test. Like every product has a certain test capabilities, isn't it? What is its strength? What is its durability? Now this principle can be applied to the maximum, to every individual. The question is, if you're not able to apply, that's when you get in trouble. So the principle is, align your mental expectations as per the fresh measurements you continue to take when you deal with people. Constantly, you must be able to take fresh measurements. It's like you have been taking the same stretch of road from your home to your office. Just because it's the same stretch of road and you have been taking for the past 20, 30 years, would you say, I know exactly how the traffic would behave? You would know how exactly things, you may have a general idea, but yet every day presents itself as a different challenge, isn't it? You can't take any turn for granted. Oh, there's never a traffic at this corner, so would you take a blind turn? You are asking for trouble. Isn't it? It could be that at that point you take a chance and you could have a fatal accident. So you may have an understanding, but you got to take fresh measurements. As a driver, you got to be alert all the time. Just because you're familiar with the track, that doesn't mean you take it for granted. You cannot. Similarly, you must constantly evaluate, assess, take stock, and then align your expectations as per what the person is presenting himself or herself. Then you will have a perfect relationship. You will have no unreasonable expectations. You will have no preferential relationship. That's the methodology, how you can hold people in equal regard, irrespective of their diverse characteristics, diverse natures. It could be a friend or a foe. It could be a benefactor or a malefactor. It could be a good-hearted or an evil-minded. You look upon them equally. This is from a very applicability perspective. So you're able to deal with them. You admire a tiger, you admire a deer, but you deal with a tiger differently. You relate with a tiger, with a deer differently. Yet a visit to the zoo or visit to a jungle is a disappointment if you don't get to see a tiger, isn't it? A tiger is the king of the jungle. You could see hundreds of deers, but maja nahi hai. A deer to deer hai. But even if you get a sight of a tiger, you're done. You get the satisfaction, but yet you know the danger. yet you will appreciate it from a distance. You will admire the ferocity of a tiger. You understand the cunningness of a hyena. You will understand the softness of a lamb. You will understand the fickleness of a monkey. You will understand people start changing their natures like a chameleon. So all these natures are actually reflecting in a human, but you can't make that clear assessment with reference to human because of the complexity of what human brings to. An animal remains the same. See, what is the difference between humans and animals? Since we talked about it, I rather make it crystal clear. All animals, what they have is known as collective vasanas. Srinivas Reddy Garu, let's say I take you to the African savannah. I don't have to take you there. But if you have any plan of taking me there, I don't mind coming along with you. Huh? Okay, but you just have to put on the National Geographic and see. They would be these zebras. There would be 50, 60, 100 of them.
Moving in a herd.
Moving in a herd, you know, in the savannah, in the plains. First of all, even from the look of it, you will not be able to differentiate between any two zebras. And yet, no two zebras look the same. You know that? You know, other day I was watching a National Geographic program where the mother penguin, king penguins, they have left the, you know, it's always one stays back with the kid or with the egg to protect. Other one goes for hunting into the deep seas, and they are away at times for 2-3 weeks at a stretch, and they come back with the food. And when they come back with the food, there is no particular nest, and there are, let's say, 100,000 penguins. Now, how is it possible to identify its partner? It was amazing how the next half an hour I was just gripped to it to see how does it go about it. And no two calls of penguins are the same. And for you and me, they look the same. But yet, what I am trying to drive home is all penguins behave the same way, isn't it?
Yep.
All zebras behave the same way. All giraffes behave the same way. All tigers behave the same way. What they have is known as collective nature, collective asanas. Now you put all human beings in one compartment. I don't know what we can call that bunch of people. I don't know what to call. No two humans are the same. Even if we were to bring them and all same height, all from the same culture, same country, same background, same education, same. You know, I've heard so much of IIT in the past 2 years, which I have not heard in my whole life. Thanks to being with Harish ji, every other reference he has IIT, IIM, you know, because he's a product of IIT, IIM, and I've heard. And let's say bring all the IIT people of the same batch together, Harish ji. All your batchmates and all your acquaintances bring together, all IITians only. Are you all the same? Everyone has what is known as the individualistic nature. And this makes it very challenging for us to deal with them, because what you are is not what, as I see so many of you all on my screen, each one of you are distinct and different. And that is the onus. If I have to deal with all of you, the onus is on me to take a stock and assessment of to what you are bringing to the table, and deal with that, rather than projecting my expectation onto you and complaining that you are not fitting into my bracket or not fitting into my frame. This is the continuous problem we have in relationship with people. I'm only trying to understand how to see this, how to look at this principle. But then it's a practical challenge, isn't it, Srinivasji?
Yes, there's going to be a real challenge, Guruji, because, okay, and when we're dealing with the personal level, most probably we'll try to align, learn, unlearn, relearn. We can do so many things to get aligned to the current reality. But when it comes to be managing the organization, managing a group of people, so it's highly impossible to start getting into the each individual start process, aligning to there. So then there's a process comes into the place where there will be a goodwill practices have been created. So let whole team, whole of the people has to be right from the top position to the bottommost position of the organization should align to them, irrespective of your own gunas, vasanas, limitations, factors, intelligence, wisdom, whatever you have it there. Otherwise, moving further forward could be highly challenging because we can't keep tailoring to the self needs. Like for a simple example, we put up in the morning, 9 o'clock is the time to enter into the office premises. You find tamasic, you have an eretic, you have a sattvic persons, they have their own way of coming and attending, cannot be workable there. So we need to bring all of them into the one common. So even we put our efforts of understanding each individual, that could be a limiting factor for us. Our whole lifetime is not sufficient enough, and trying to gauge the other person's perspective or trying to correct our own perspective, whichever may be the reason.
No, see, as you rightly said, let's say everyone has to check into the office at 9 a.m. But yet, you know, of the group, there are a few people who will never report on time, who have this nature of procrastinating. Anything that you do, anything is assigned, they will have a knack of delaying it. Now, when you, let's say, but he is an invaluable asset to the organization, because what that man can bring, that faith and integrity and service he has done to the organization is unparalleled, far more than you would say. Now, let's say you have this person who has this tamasic quality, but who has a fantastic asset quality, which is an asset to the organization. Would you sit and complain, why is this fellow so procrastinating? If only this guy has the knack of doing things and get things done when it ought to be done. Man, this guy will be a different level. I can't even afford this fellow then.
Right.
But when you know his nature, are you not able to make that adjustment, giving that extra time? You know this guy will take 2 days for a job which can be done in 2 hours. He will take 2 days. You will work ahead in advance. You will give him 3 days, 1 day buffer you keep for yourself, so you don't lose your cool.
Exactly. So either we align to the understanding the weakness or the weak points of the other person, or we also sometimes say let go or ignore that particular aspect of it, looking at the bigger picture of that. So that's where the flexibility comes into our end. How do we flexible enough on a situation based? How do we handle? How do we take it? Either we go a discipline mode, or it could be a corrective mode.
The thumb rulers, you have to keep the larger interest in mind. That's a thumb rule, sir.
That's right.
If my thumb is sore, I will rather lose my thumb and retain my arm. You know, I have to retain the totality, but if I have to let go of the thumb, never mind, I'll have to let go of it. But I have to keep it. If I can heal it, heal it. But keep the totality in mind. So if I have to accommodate, if I have to make the adjustment, keep the larger picture. And then you will find the law of karma. The fact that you have given out so much, it reciprocates back. Invariably, that the love and affection and understanding, the world will start mending its way to accommodate you, because the law of karma works.
That's true.
Isn't it? It works mysteriously. It works, you know.
Yes, it works, Guruji. We tested that.
But what we all have to apply is in areas where we're having a slight niggle with relationships with people, we'll have to apply this principle. Bring in the understanding, then you'll find you're able to align your expectations to what is offered. So to that extent, you're expected to understand what you're dealing with.
Right.
That's the product. That's the product. You can't complain why it is like that. Like summer is going to be hot. The next 3 months is going to be hot. You got to understand it, accept it, and adapt yourself. You can't wear your winter clothing and complain, why is it so hot? You got to suit yourself to the changing climate.
But the Guruji, the challenge we come across, like when we do aligning to the weaknesses and trying to correct them or doing what best, definitely the perspective, what we have been giving to the message to the rest of the people, that you are a weak person, you are not able to stand enough in taking a decisive decision in controlling, correcting the person who is wrong doing things. Okay, even though he is doing 90% of good things, definitely the 10% of wrong things have been projected the more related manner. So the conflict always comes from because I come across quite a lot of people when similar situations arises. As I said, you are very soft on some of the areas. You're ignoring, you're overlooking that part of it. I do. It gives like a pinch of salt to you that somebody is trying to comment on your way of walking. But you have as you rightly put it, you have a larger interest in the picture, because they may be looking from their window, but I had to look at the holistically, what is the organization interest there. So most probably I need to ignore their comments. I need to let the reason and leave it. Most probably that could be the. So in the end, I always see that let's not be rigid, but we need to be flexible and we need to be agile on a situation based, because as as you rightly put across, when you start traveling from morning, you doesn't know how the traffic is going to be, what challenges are going to be come across there. So we need to be always 100% to be alert, the first and most, and prepare for the consequences which comes across. Because what we designed, once upon a time, we used to have a 5 years plan, but nowadays even 5 months plan is not working with the uncertainties which are coming. The best of the best companies, and January 2020, they planned that they're going to be world leader. They had to change their structure by March in a 3 months time. They had to reschedule the whole planning, which is about 150,000 people working in that organization. So that down the line, what's going to happen next 3 months, they could not predict it. Forget about we talking about fast. So the world is changing, the dynamics are changing. In the current moment, I strongly feel that we need to get ready for whatever it comes to.
Correct. So, but if you very rightly said, but ultimately you'll appreciate the thumb rule or the principle we said will not change.
Yes.
The capacity to take a fresh stock, take assessment, and keep dealing with people or different situations. What that person, what situation brings to the table, because it's a relationship involves two factors. So both factors are variable. This is what we're saying. You can't keep anything static.
Right.
Everyone is subject to change. Everything is changing. So as well, we are able to adapt to that. We'll have a harmonious relationship.
That's correct. Thanks.
Right, sir. Right. So any other comments? Any examples? Any case studies? And Subramaniam, sir.
Hariom Guruji. Of course, examples abound in with all of us, because we've all been in the working area. People have been people have been self-employed. People have been working in the corporate sector, like Harish and all. They've been entrepreneurs and been this and that. And for one, have been in the government sector for close to 35 years. So one assignment I had, one of the last assignments, in fact, the last, was chief auditor of the cooperative department. I'll take a little time if you permit me. We had about some 30,000 societies to be, audited, certificates to be given, and all that in that particular financial year. And then, there are some state level societies, district level, primary level, and all that. This has to be done by a team of district cooperative audit officers spread all over the 23 districts of the erstwhile state. That staff was about 1,200 to 1,500 people in the state. And in my head office, I had 15 people with me, including my audit officer, plus at the sub-registrar, senior inspector, and all that, like this. So you can imagine the load on these people is pretty high, because they need to help me see that these things happened. I need a tour and all that. And I found one person who was just left alone by my predecessors and all, because he was just he was union man. He was the president of the head office, union, whatever. And then they would just not bother about him. But I found that one good resource is being wasted. and no chief auditor would like to cross words with him. I would like to say that. But then he's not a bad fellow. And I found out what is it that we need to make use. He's also getting salary, and I can't fire him. It's not government, it's government. So I had to devise some ways of finding out if I give him something which is expected of others and all that, he wouldn't do it because he doesn't come, as you said, he would not come on time, and then he was 100 reasons. He goes to union office, he's given permission for that, he gets so many casualties, 15 casualties. But then what do I do? And this man also has got self-respect. So I thought, let me give some job to him, which he can do even if he doesn't come to office, even if he needs it in his union office. So I just gave him a job, and he's good in computers and all. So I said, why don't you devise all the systems for us and all? And we have returns regularly coming and all. And you sit wherever you are, see that the returns come to me by 10th of every month. It never used to. 20th onwards, even 20th, it will come and we would have to have reminders. And he did the job extremely well. He did extremely well. So it is all about identifying what a person can do, working on his strengths. Like we say, we have to strengthen our strengths to work on other people's strengths also. We have to get the best out of them, because everyone basically is not interested in just getting salary. They want the self-respect also. So here was this man doing that, and again some days coming very much on time, staying late also, because he has a job on hand. So this example like this abound in all our minds and all. So like you said, one has to have that this thing of not leaving anybody, not saying that I don't touch him so it's weakness. No, you need to extract work from them, but then in a manner that you don't rub him on the wrong side and all that, because everyone basically wants that satisfaction.
Yes, sir. Interesting. Yes, I'm sure there's so many experiences over the years, isn't it?
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Great. Yeah, Sitaramji.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
What Mr. Subramaniam said and Mr. Srinivas said, they talked of, in a industrial setup, where you have a choice to let go an employee and you're dealing with them at a distance. Of course, it affects the organization some way or the other. I have come across this more, say, in the family environment, where your own kids are so differently, shall I say, built, both in terms of their mental capabilities, their physical capabilities, their motivation levels, their aspirations. And it's what you said was very right. It's very difficult to align our expectations of our kids relating to their desires and abilities. But unless we do that, I think we run into trouble. I mean, they might eventually turn out to be successful, but the relationship that you have with them tends to be fraught with lots of anxieties and this thing. So it's extremely important to know what your kids are like, what their desires, and accordingly have your expectation tailor-made and change to that. To give you an example, I have two sons, very capable person, both of them. And we are from a background where education was important, typical middle class of Indian families and all that, government servants, parents and all that. But my younger son was very keen on sports. My elder son, and he was very motivated and had a lot of, though he was intelligent, but he was more keen on sports. My elder one was more talented sports-wise, but he was not that motivated doing these sports. A very different kind of a thing. And we did, after some, let's say, not so pleasant experiences, decided that one must go with what the child's desire is. And we changed our expectation on that basis. And I'm glad we did that. And both turned out very differently, but differently successful. But the trauma which my younger son went, because in the earlier years we could not make out what his actual desire was, and we wanted to mold him in the standard way. He still carries those difficult years and the scars that are left on him. So he still does that, though he has overcome that in terms of this thing, but mentally it is still there. So it's extremely important to tailor make our expectations to what the people whom we are dealing with. and what they can with her. I think very important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No. Very true. Very true. In fact, it just ascertains and reassures the principle we are talking about. And in situations like you have no choice but to be ultra careful with your own family. In fact, this principle you have to implement in to people whomever you're dealing with day in and day out, whether be it home or work or your society you're living in. Unless until you have this, you'll not be at peace, you'll not be at rest, because you will have to be comfortable dealing with different personalities and what they bring to the table. You have to be comfortable, and how will you be comfortable is by understanding them what they are and aligning your expectations towards them. And that's very important. And if we don't get this right, it's like a bull in a china shop. You're going to have series of mental accidents. It causes a lot of ruptures. I can really appreciate where you're coming from. different perspectives. Yeah, I think a little earlier chat, Ushama has clarified something. Ushama, can I ask you to explain what is it you're asking, ma?
Namaste, Guruji. This principle, is it practically possible to be applied every minute with every person? Even when you're, sometimes when you're being selfishly utilized by the other person and you are aware of it, that you're being, those kind of circumstances. I mean, you understand the objective of the other person, you know that you're being selfishly utilized by the other person. Still, can you apply the same kind of equanimity while dealing with it?
No, it's like, you have these, where is it in Spain? Huh? What do you call it? They have the bulls that are left on the streets to run. What do you call that sport? It's a huge sport which draws people from all over the world. They gather at that time of the year. What do you call that? Is there a specific bull? I'm not talking of a bullfight in the ring. I'm talking of the bulls which run onto the streets, which crowded streets, and there's this bull raging onto you, but you wouldn't want it to trounce you and then hurt you and go. So you're trying to avoid it. Yet it's a sport. It's an entertaining sport. I don't endorse it nor recommend it, but I'm just reminded of it. So when you know someone who has a particular nature, who's taking advantage of your goodwill, let's say, nowhere in the Shastras say that you should be a victim of any situation. So when you understand that person, that he is selfish and manipulative, your goodness is of no use if you fall a prey to their cunning mental attitude. So I would say you are at fault if you allow that to happen. Exactly what happened to Yudhishthira. Yudhishthira was known as Dharma Raja, isn't it? And yet he fell a prey to the hands of the vicious Duryodhana and cousins, his brothers, and the team. So the question is, what is the use of the goodness if it doesn't protect you, if you're not able to avoid the onslaught of their negativity onto you? So if you understand very clearly that person is selfish, you should not allow yourself to be victimized of their actions. Whatever the trauma, whatever the mental disturbance, it hurts you, it should not be allowed. So you need to align your reaction, your responses to them in a way so that you are not a victim of it. I'm only answering to the extent I have been given information, which is acceptable, which is fair enough. In a platform like this, you're asking, someone is selfish, manipulative, how do I deal with it? Don't be a victim of it. You can't change that person's nature, can you?
Yeah.
But you don't be a victim of that.
Even if it's within the family or whom you cannot avoid.
No, absolutely. It could be within the family. That is, how different does it make? It's just because you're in the family doesn't mean you become a victim. Isn't it?
Yeah.
Each one has an individuality. Each one has their own personality.
True.
And each one has a right to live a life what they wish is right to do.
Yeah.
But you should not impose yourself on others, nor should you allow others to impose onto you.
Yeah, that's true.
There has to be a mutual respect and understanding where each one has an individuality. So once you understand their individuality, it's important you don't become a victim. You should not be a doormat. No, nobody should trounce you. Nobody should use you as a doormat. Absolutely no. Shastras give us the capacity where you don't become a victim. Rather, you rise above the situation, and your goodness should influence the other person's character and personality.
Yeah. Okay.
Hopefully, one day we all will rise to the extent where our actions will change other person's behavior and conduct, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that's possible first. You don't become a victim.
Correct.
So I think if we take that approach, I think it's very much applicable. It's very much practical, but then it requires a great level of alertness.
Yeah.
Alertness and a sharp mental awareness.
Yes.
Once that is there, you should be able to certainly apply it.
Okay. Thank you, Guruji. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Right. Right. So, Harishi, you want to say something? Is there anything I'm missing?
No, Guruji. Whatever I wanted to say, I've typed it out already in the chat box.
Oh, okay. Which is that yeah.
Are you waiting for me to say something, Guruji?
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to read the comment, but if you have something to say, please go ahead, Ji.
Nothing original. I again will repeat what I've only heard and learned. But I think the essential thing is there are two essential aspects. One is don't try and align everybody else. Instead, align yourself. Right. The second principle is when you align yourself, what do you align to? And it is the principle of aligning to something which is completely unselfish is extremely important. If there is even a small element of selfishness in the goal, this somehow gets known to the other person and it never has the effect. Provided it is completely unselfish. What can be only unselfish? That which is sacrificial in nature, which is the only thing which can be unselfish. And therefore, what is a higher goal is the only thing which can be unselfish. Now, therefore, if you start concentrating on something higher, invariably your own unselfishness, your own attitude will drive others, as you said, to come and follow the same path. And they too will align with things which are unselfish. The moment everybody is in an unselfish mode, the conflicts are removed.
Correct.
And that, I think, is the essence of all management, is to try and find a higher objective in every action that we perform. There are hundreds of examples that one can give from our personal lives. I'm sure everybody has them. But in a very, very small and almost like a trivializing kind of way, like when you have a salesman and you want him to achieve a target, you move beyond the fact that you have to achieve the target. You move, in fact, to the company wanting to achieve something, or you move to a national goal or a region-wise goal, a statewide goal. So you make the picture a larger picture, and that's the only way that you can move it out of the focus. Otherwise, the message always gets across, Ari, you're only asking me to achieve my target because you want to achieve your target. So, and there is an element of truth in that. You can't deny it. So I think the essence is to move in an unselfish direction that can only come with a higher cause.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very true. In fact, even to think from what is his nature, vis-a-vis what are my expectations, that in itself is unselfish, isn't it? What is that person's nature? To think from other person's perspective rather than constantly thinking, this is my thinking, this is my wants, this is my aspiration, these are my feelings. See, when you are still confined to thinking only from one's perspective, it is still selfish. But as long as when we look at from other perspective, that is the first step of unselfishness, and then you continue to raise the bar. Continue. Yes.
If I can quote something which you keep saying, that empathy and unselfishness, etc., the starting point is humility. Correct. So when you have humility and don't have ego, that is what leads to empathy. That is what leads to unselfishness. That is what leads to the entire solutions that we are talking of. So I think the fundamental issue is to have the humility to accept that we are part of the process and not the entire process.
It starts with us, isn't it? It has to start within. Absolutely. Yes. Sitaramji, yes. Thanks for blessing us.
Just a quick one. Usha was mentioning about, is it practical to do all these things to try and tailor make your things to individuals? If we don't do it, I think we are in trouble. I can look at the example of the government's these 3 farm policies. It's a good policy, I have no issue with that. But every state is very different in terms of the recipients of the benefits of the farm or the MSP, etc. And you can see the result of that all. Government has applied the same law to all the states of the country, and there is a problem because all the states were not benefiting the same way of the MSP. So it is extremely necessary, whether it's at an individual level or at a government level or at an industry level, to know that there are differences existing in the to whom your actions are really applied. Very, very necessary to do that. We must align ourselves to that and then accordingly act. Slightly different from what Harish is saying, that we must align ourselves to them. No, we must align our actions according to what they require, not ourselves. That's the only difference I would make.
Yes, Jay. So I think the differences between you and Hariji can be dealt independently outside the class. But both of you align to each other's approaches and then deal with it. However, I know you both are very dear friends. Yes, so Sheilama is saying if someone speaks lies day in and day out, how to make him realize that this habit is dangerous and he'll not be trusted even if he's telling the truth. By telling him that story, tiger, 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 isn't it? Wolfa. Rajima, please tell us a story. No, you were Hari Om.
Hari Om, Guruji. No, it's well, you can have variations of any animal, but it's basically to put the fear of an animal into your head. But by just saying a wolf has entered the house and come and help me, save me, in the villages. Finally, when it actually happened, nobody was there to help. So that is the moral of the story. So if you keep telling lies then even on an occasion when you do speak the truth, then nobody is going to be believing it.
Yeah. And Shilama is saying she's tried and failed. Ma, education can happen either through knowledge or through experience. So let experience teach a lesson of life. Someday it will dawn on that person to take a right course of action. And there are people who don't even learn from experience. Let them leave it to themselves. You can't transform them. You transform yourself and then give hope for the best. But you don't. You feel sorry for their lack of knowledge, and you feel sympathetic. You feel you have your love and feeling for them, and try to help in whatever way you can, rather than being dismissive and being pessimistic and being negative to it. If you can in any way help them, yeah, but in spite of that, they have their nature, their gunas are functioning, so you got to accept it, you got to respect it, and try your best to see how you can influence. But if not knowledge, through experience, they'll learn it one day. We all have learned through knowledge and experience, isn't it? Have you learned only through knowledge? Have you not had experience in your life to teach you? Yeah, you may not have had this quality, but you have had other hiccups of life. You may have other challenges of life. You may have had other drawbacks in life, which the other person doesn't have. So why do you brand that person as, we can't brand that person as incompetent or something drastically short in their lives, but there's a flaw. Each one adapts to learning in different ways. So we got to respect and give him that, give that person an opportunity to learn. Life is the best teacher. Experience is a teacher. Knowledge is a teacher. So let's surrender to that. And you should give up the anxiety of bringing about a transformation in that person. That's the difficult part, isn't it? The anxiety is a difficult part to deal with. Okay. Right, ma. All right. So let's move on. We'll take up the 10th verse. Yogi yunjita satatam atmanam rahasi sthitaha ekakiyata chittatma nirashira parigraha. Yogi yunjita satatam atmanam rahasi sthitaha ekakiyata chittatma nirashira parigraha. Now, as I mentioned last week, verses 10 onwards, in fact, verses 10 to 18, here he's starting the external and the internal disciplines required for meditation. Let's not forget the chapter. We are on the 6th chapter titled Yoga of Meditation. So the first 9 verses, he spoke about rather how a spiritual practitioner rises from a yogi to a sannyasi to a jnani. Okay. Now here he's talking about the disciplines required for meditation. Now here he starts, let the yogi remaining in solitude, alone, seated. Now there's a comma, don't read in one line. Let the yogi remaining in solitude, alone, seated, with mind and body controlled, constantly practice union with the self, free from desire and possession. Now, please keep in mind the actual description of meditation is only going to come in the 28th verse. So from verses 10 till 27, you will find he keeps repeating the essential prerequisite or the preparation required, which is necessary and conducive before you start meditating. Even in a chapter of meditation, he spends 17 verses talking about the preparation before you actually sit and meditate. So you will get tired of it. I'm preparing in advance. So please garner some patience. I will not elaborate it because it will be repetitive, but I'll keep explaining the essential aspects. First, he says, let the yogi is one. Who is a yogi? One who is seeking yoga, who is trying to seek union with the self, remaining in solitude. Remaining in solitude refers from withdrawal from the external world. You need to withdraw from the world, from the external disturbances. And then, having withdrawn from the external disturbances, then you start withdrawing from the internal disturbances. For example, you can't start practicing meditation sitting in the marketplace. If you're in Hyderabad, I can't tell you sit on the Begumpet road at 11 o'clock in the morning, amidst the traffic and chaos and honking and that all the dust and pollution, sit and meditate. You can't do that. So first you got to withdraw, be in solitude. Guruji, it's very difficult to withdraw. Where do you find solitude? If you can't find a place of solitude, choose a time when you're in solitude. You could be with people surrounded all the time, but then you could choose a time where you're alone. For example, let's say early in the morning. If you get up at 5 o'clock, nobody's awake. All the tamasic fellows are sleeping. So let them sleep till 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. You get up at a time where you will find yourself in solitude. So start off with external withdrawal, and then you are withdrawing internally. Now, why is the word alone, ekaki? Now, why is the word ekaki mentioned here? Which is contrary to what is being practiced today. What is it that is being practiced today? Vasantama.
Mass meditation, group meditation.
So today what is being practiced is exactly the opposite of what is being prescribed. I'm not saying which is right, which is wrong. Because if I say something, you'll be angry at me. Why should I say something to disturb you or unsettle you? I'm only explaining what the text is saying. Now, disregarding what is being practiced today, why is he saying ekaki? From a broader perspective.
Because
you came alone onto this here and you will go alone.
I know something like that is coming. I knew.
You alone can be responsible for your own meditation. Yeah, the solitudeness.
In fact, you're right. Spiritual path is a path of a loner. You can't take your dear husband Setharamanji along with you and say, let's start the spiritual journey. Let's go hand in hand. We held hand in hand. We walked in the park. We went so many places. We went to movies. We did so many things. Here also, please come hand in hand. Let's walk together in this journey. How much ever he may be willing to come along with you, but you can't hold hand in hand walk. Yeah. Why? Ekaki. You can't go as a In fact, if you have noticed, the olden days, temples were always built up in the mountains, isn't it? At heights. And those days, there were no asphalted roads for you to get there. So people used to walk, and they had created a pathway. And the pathway was always narrow, almost in single file, isn't it? It is almost impossible even for another person to walk side by side with you. So even if 2 people or 5 people or 10 people walking, it is one behind the other. Every morning Hariji would be there to endorse it. Even today, I remembered this actually, and I'm glad, and it's coming here. Every morning, what do we notice, Hariji, in the army area? When you cycle past in the army area, what do you notice?
Are you referring to the sunrise?
No, I'm not talking about. I'm talking about ekaki. See, even today, maybe I'm demanding too much by asking that. Whenever you notice 10 Jawans walking, there's always one behind the other. Today I actually noticed there are 10 fellows or plus minus are walking, and each fellow was walking one behind, as if been told to do so. Which you notice it, which you not find college fellows walking. They'll walk holding hand in hand. First of all, the road is narrow, and these college fellows will be walking. 3 fellows will be walking hand in hand. You have to honk and honk and honk and tell that fellow, man, there's no way. I'll hit you. Please give way. They will not walk one behind the other. Now you see the difference. So the word alone symbolizes spiritual transformation is a loner's journey. And when you are practicing, you are a loner. And I must assure you, there is absolutely no insecurity in being alone. You feel very secure in being alone. How many of you agree to that? One of the reasons why people marry is security. Why you choose a companion is security. You have a security. One of the reasons of marriage or choosing a partner. But in spiritual path, you don't need a partner or a guru or anyone for that matter. You find great assurance in being a loner. Now, where do you get that strength from? Badriji. You were so still, I thought whether your camera is frozen. Unless you have already started meditating.
No. I have not.
That's possible. Knowing Badriji, that's possible. You're few steps ahead of us.
No, nothing like that. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well. Yes.
Yeah. So, the process of any kind of discovery is a lonely job. You look at all the great explorations. A lot of them have been done by single people. So whether it is self-discovery or discovery of the world, okay, just as you said, when you climb a mountain, if you look at any mountaineering, these mountaineers, 5 of them might climb a mountain, but they'll be one behind the other. Okay, they will never be in parallel. Yeah. I'm also reminded of Rabindranath Tagore's famous song, Ekla Chalore. It's in Bengali, Ekla Chalore, walk alone.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't know the meaning of that, but it's a very famous song, though. Yeah. Can you sing for us?
No, I'm sorry. I cannot.
Come on.
I just know.
You have shown us the gulab jamun. Now you're not giving us tasting it. What is this?
I can share the recording of that later with you. I don't want to spoil your sense of composure by inflicting it on you.
No. Okay, Badriji, hold on. We have a recommendation for Tinkima to do so. So Tinkima, please. Who is this Kumar? A recommendation from Kumar that Tinkima can. Yes, ma.
I don't know the songs, sadly.
Come on.
I don't know the words really.
नहीं आप कंप्यूटर के सामने ही है ना वर्ड्स टाइप you will get the lyrics.
Yeah, but I don't want to sort of contort and spoil the song, the original. But maybe I will learn it, and one day when it's in the reference, perhaps I will then sing it.
Sure. No problem. Yeah.
There is also a saying of Dr. Radhakrishnan. He said, the day you begin to understand yourself, that's the day you will begin to understand the world. So therefore, the first step is always inward. To first, how, for instance, if you don't know your own strengths and weaknesses, okay, and how you deal with that, how you handle your own strengths and weaknesses, how will you be empathetic to other people's strengths and weaknesses? So, I mean, that's the way I interpreted Dr. Radhakrishnan's saying.
Yes. Yeah, Badriji, I was clarifying earlier when I asked you, when you, as I said, spiritual path is being a loner, and being alone sometimes can be. In fact, I've heard people who have reached the top of corporate ladder, and they say they feel very lonely there. They feel very insecure there. This is a common sentiment people have experienced who have reached the echelons of perfection or in their own ladder they have climbed, and they feel very insecure. But it's not the same in spiritual field. You are always a loner, and when you reach that spiritual elevated height, you don't feel insecure. So the question was, where do you get that security from? But am I right to comment that people who have reached corporate ladder and the top, they feel very insecure, they feel very lonely?
Quite often it happens because, as you go higher and higher, it's like if you're a king, there's hardly anybody who tells you the truth. Everybody tells you what you want to hear. And suppose your nature is such that you want feedback from everybody, the nature of people around you is that they will only try to tell you what you want to hear. So therefore, you feel lonely because you don't have any, you're insecure because you don't know whether you are understanding your own organization or, in fact, organizations fail because the man at the top is not getting full feedback from, from the people around. So some people at the top are afraid of that. They're afraid whether the organization that they are running has that kind of, pitfall built into it. So, but the good CEOs will try and work around that. They create processes which ensure that they're not lonely at the top. See, it's a pyramid. Pyramid is pointed at the top. So that if you're right at the top, there's room only for one. Okay. So, how do you handle this? In the armed forces, for instance, they have a great way of handling this. Though their chain of command is very clear, you don't question orders from somebody above you. You follow them unquestioningly. In the heat of battle, there's a lot of leeway given to the lower level people, the majors, the captains, the lieutenant colonels, who are doing the actual fighting, to act on the merits of the situation. So there, the armed forces, they allow a lot of flexibility from their own very hierarchical methods. So these are built into the organization. Okay, so even in a civilian organization, you have to have processes which ensure that the man at the top is not lonely. What does loneliness mean? That you don't have inputs from outside. That's what loneliness means. And it can be a problem. Now, coming to your question about spiritual path, why is it that somebody who's looking inwards and meditating, why is it that he doesn't feel insecure? That was your question, right?
Correct.
Yes.
See, it's possible that even in your own family, you could be the only person in the spiritual field. Nobody else is interested in your journey.
Correct. Quite possible, yes.
It's very much possible. So and yet throughout your it's drawing inspiration from within, and whoever could be helping you, but always you're a loner. So the question is, where do you get that security from?
I think you get the security because once you start realizing that your essential nature is the same as the essential nature of everybody else, even if you are partially moved to in that direction, understanding the self, with a small s, okay. If that is the focus of meditation, as you go further down that path, you realize that all these barriers of space and time which separates people, okay, these barriers don't mean much, and therefore you don't feel insecure. The feeling insecurity arises when there's a sense of separation from the world outside. When you draw inwards, you don't have a sense of separation from the world outside. You're just focusing your energies inwards. You're trying to understand yourself, but you don't have a feeling of separation from the world. I mean, I don't think I'm making sense, but
No, you have explained it in your own way, and you're right. That strength of a spiritual man is self-reliant. There's a quality in the text where they say self-reliance vis-a-vis dependence on external factors or dependence on the world. So one of the yardsticks of a spiritual development is you become self-sufficient, self-reliant. So even though you're a loner, where you get that strength because is you have enriched that quotient of self-sufficiency.
Okay.
Where you revel in yourself by yourself. You don't need anything external to contribute to your joy or contentment or satisfaction or security. So this is what I was getting at.
Yeah, one of the verses just 3-4 verses back said exactly the same thing, didn't it? What you said.
Did it? I don't know. My memory is very poor. That's the reason you find me keep repeating every time many things.
Well, repetition of what makes sense is desirable, isn't it?
Oh, yes, very true. Yeah. I'm glad. Yeah. So the
10 verses will find it.
Yes. So Gayatri Ma is saying every field you seek security from outside. In the spiritual path, you seek it within. Correct. When you're alone, there's no competition. Okay. Difference of being a leader of others vis-a-vis one's own leader. Very apt, very apt. So it is now only an experiential thing we all need to take up, or we all are experiencing, but we need to enhance that experiential effect. So we are just maximizing it. So even in that height of meditation, you will find yourself, you will be reveling the self all by yourself, and it's very difficult to convey that experience to anyone. It's too subtle. Okay. And then the rest of the verse I'll come back, and then he says you have to practice meditation being seated. You can't meditate while you're jogging, while you're swimming you can't meditate, or while you're paragliding you can't meditate. So you have to be seated, not seated in a recliner chair. You got to be seated in as I say, half locus posture, the Ardha Padmasana. If you sit with your, he actually go into the detail. He says back correct, neck correct, head direct, that direct, the correct. He'll say, so he's going to go into the details of it. But starts off by saying, withdraw yourself from the world, be in solitude. Now, how long can you all be away from the world? Test yourself that. Voluntarily, where you disconnect yourself from the world and you're just by yourself. You say, no, sir, thank you. As long as I have my phone, I'm fine being myself. No, nothing with you. Just disconnect you from the world and just you are by yourself, And the moment you feel a certain uneasiness, you have reached the threshold of your capacity of being self-sufficient. You need the world to give you, whether you need a TV or a phone or a companion, or you need to talk to someone. Can you say, I'm not available, I'm not interested, I don't want the world? How long can you withdraw? And then says, with the mind and body control, damaha and shamaha. Damaha is control the body, shamaha is control the mind. He doesn't put it in as many words because he's going to deal with it as we go on. So with your mind and body control, you've got to constantly making sure all this is done, constantly practice union with the self. Again, here he says, free from desire and possession. No possession, no possessiveness. No possessiveness, no I and my. No ego and arrogance. No desire means no desire for what you do not have, which you have not acquired. No possessiveness to what you acquired. Even here he mentions that. Okay. So we'll come back to a long list of necessary preparation, almost trying to discourage you to meditate. If you want to meditate, continue, carry on. I am no one to say no, but Lord Krishna is saying, don't. Ensure you are ready for it. All right, we'll come back. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.